Hi folks, this is my thoughts on Pirates of the Polygon Sea. I've played it for 3-4 hours now. I would have played it for a little bit longer, but unfortunately when I bought the game, despite having a receipt from Steam, I got this ready screen. So it was a couple hours before I could actually get it installed and ready to play. The way I hope it will develop, that may well be completely different to how the developers actually intend it to go. I have read the Steam community forums, and the developers seem to be quite engaged there. They are answering threads. Hopefully they keep that up. There's been one update so far, which is pretty good seeing as it came on release day. So fingers crossed, it's looking quite good. What I would say is don't expect to be the boss of a huge trading empire here. This game is about piracy. The clue is very much in the name. Arguably pirating's a little bit too easy at the moment, especially if you take your time and you don't attract too much attention from bounty hunters. You can kill a few ships, take their loot, and then just hide out for a little while. Sell up and repeat. It's pretty easy. I found it quite boring though, so I ended up being a pirate hunter, it was nice that I'm able to do that in this game. And being a pirate hunter felt a little bit more dangerous. You don't always just find one pirate on their own. You come across 2 or 3 pirates together, you tend to get all of them attacking you at once. Whereas if you're a pirate, if there's no bounty hunters around, you'll be able to attack pretty much any ship and you'll only ever have them attack you back, but generally speaking they'll run. They won't actually fight back from what I can see so far. One of the big disappointments that I've found so far is that if you get into a fight and you lose, you're just taken back to your home port and given a replacement ship. I'll be honest, I was hoping that there would be a little bit more of a story or something around how you get back to your home port, because to me personally it feels like my guy should have been marooned on an island or shipwrecked. I should have to do something in order to get back to that home port, not just immediately be back there with a small financial penalty. So I'm hoping they can add something in, and I know the devs took inspiration from Sid Meier's Pirates, so you know, something like the little screens that would put up and decisions that you could make, that would be great. But even just a basic screenshot or image showing your guy paddling back to port, literally just dots getting joined up here, it just felt a little bit disjointed, a little bit too simplistic. The developers took inspiration from Sid Meier's Pirates and from several other games. And I think this game has an enormous amount of potential if they go down the routes that some of those games have in terms of joining up the story arcs in the game. I know that it's procedural generated, but they could potentially make the game feel a lot more cohesive if they just add in little screens and a little bit more customization for the character avatar, naming your character, naming your ships, all this sort of thing. I think personalising a game can draw you into it. And right now I just feel like it's maybe a little bit too arcade, a little bit too simple. The combat, for example, is incredibly simple. I find it quite good fun, but to me there's no grape shot, there's very little tactics involved, and I think long term that could potentially harm the game. To be honest, the map is slightly bigger. Just now everything seems slightly crammed in. You can only go for a few seconds before meeting another ship, finding a Megalodon or a Leviathan or Kraken Island. It just feels a little bit too compact. And I understand that the way they want the game to work, especially when multiplayer is coming, so when that's in, it's going to be about essentially starting your own little place, getting your town up and running, basically dominating the map. That's the whole point of it. And even if you're playing single player, you're playing against AI opponents, and the whole purpose is to dominate the map. To me it still feels slightly small for that, and it could be expanded, even if they made it an optional thing. Do you want to play in a standard world or a larger world? In which case they maybe increase the size of it by 50% and just space things out. They do mention reputation in the game, notoriety, and that is shown down the bottom when you're a pirate for how your wanted level, essentially, if you compare it to Grand Theft Auto. Now my problem with this is it doesn't really seem to have any other impact on the game at the moment. It's only if you're a pirate. I would like to see it impact on other things, like if you've got a particularly good reputation, that having some sort of market impact or making your home port more popular. I really want more, I guess, interaction between me and the ports and the other good ships, the merchants. I want to have a reason to protect those guys if they come into my port, and maybe attack them if they're going to an enemy's port. And I want that to be reflected in market prices. They could give you a real reason to go out there and actually participate other than just pirating. To give you real targets other than famous pirates to hunt down. So right now there's loads of little events that happen in game. There's shipwrecked sailors, there's megalodons, the krakens, leviathans, there's pirates to spring up, there's named pirate hunters. You know, there's lots of things in this little world. But for me it just feels slightly disjointed. Like there's no overarching story or narrative to the game other than get in there and world dominate. To me it feels more like Anno. You've got all the various Anno 20 whatever. This one feels like an Anno game. It's not story driven. So it is more like Anno with a sprinkle of Sid Meier's Pirates. And I'll be honest, I am biased because I loved the original Pirates game and I would love this to be more like that, but I don't see the developers taking it in that direction. But here's some suggestions of things I would like to see. Right now you've got WASD for movement of your ship, but if you dock at port, those keys no longer move your viewpoint or have anything to do with controls. It then moves to the cursors. To me just make WASD also work the camera when you dock. It just seems strange to move the keys entirely like that. I would love to see more options for combat, grape shot, just something to drive tactics slightly. I would love to see a bigger map. Because right now combat 1 versus 1 seems to be reasonably rare. Someone else always seems to be poking their nose in. And all in all I just feel that there's not enough travel between places. You only seem to be able to control one ship at the moment. I don't know if that's going to change. But when I bought a new ship and then transferred to that new ship, I have no idea where my old ship went to. Now that just might be that I've not spent enough time in the game actually playing it, but for me it seemed a little bit strange that, oh, you've went out in your new ship today, well your old ship's now disappeared. I'm sure it's there somewhere, I just haven't been able to find out where. Trade routes. As I suggested earlier, I would like an incentive to protect merchants that are coming to me and target those going to my enemy ports. More graphical options. Personally I find the graphics a little bit too bright. It is nice, it's lovely, and I really like the animations, but I just feel like it's a little bit, I don't know, my eyeballs seem to be drying out slightly as I was playing it. I think one of the best things they could do is bring up a grid when you're removing some of the plants and rocks from the beach or the island. I found it very difficult to plan effectively because I seemed to be removing what I thought was a square's worth of rocks, but when I went to put down a house or whatever, it just wouldn't quite fit, and I found that really frustrating because it costs quite a lot of money each time to remove these. So if I had a better way of planning it, and to be honest I'm the type of player who might want to keep some of those trees and rocks there aesthetically, but right now it just feels as if I'm removing random blocks until I can maybe fit something in. It's too hit and miss. Either allow me to place the house and automatically remove the blocks around it that need to be cleared, or give me a grid so I can plan it better. The little thought bubbles up and speech bubbles that pop up during the game don't feel like they fit into the game very well. Phew, that was close. I would be very surprised if a pirate ever said that. Now, granted, they can't really have swearing in this because it's arguably aimed at a younger age group as well as us older people, but something a bit more piratey. When I look at some like Pixel Pirates, there are so many silly sayings in there. Well, they're more period and more pirate, more maritime, and I would love that slang to make it into this game. I don't think we need to have little sayings like phew, that was close. Something a bit more in tune with the actual theme of the game. Now I know that this might all have seemed quite negative, but to be honest, I really enjoy playing this. I usually decide whether a game's value for money based off £1 per hour of entertainment. I can absolutely guarantee you I will consider this value for money because I'm already 3 or 4 hours into it and I will be going back for more. Really, I enjoyed the game and I can see what direction they're taking, and I'm quite excited to play it more in the future. They're coming out with updates that engage with the community. It's got all the basics in there. If it was just made a little bit more in depth, I would love to see shipboarding. I don't think that'll ever happen, but just make it feel a little bit more joined together, cohesive, maybe just a little bit more of a story. I know that it's not a story driven game, maybe one you can make your own story, but just little screens to join things up, and you know, a little bit more work in the ports so that the taverns aren't just menus, the market isn't just a menu, so there's a little bit more interaction there. It just feels a little bit too basic at times. But like I said, it's early days for this game. I am not knocking it by any means. I think it's a fantastic little game on its own, and this is one of the better ones that I've seen that have just come out Greenlight and Steam. There's at least 60-70% of the game in here already. It's very playable, it's very stable. Speaking of how it plays, I did a little mess around with resolutions and graphic detail settings. I'll post these up just now, but generally speaking, if you're using sort of the higher graphical settings, to me it didn't feel quite as smooth as when it was just on simple graphics. I'm not sure what the problem is there. I've got a fairly beefy machine, and neither the CPU nor GPU were being pushed more than 40% at any one time. So it wasn't maxing my PC out by any means, but it still wasn't maxing out my FPS either. It's early days, there's plenty of time for them to come back and sort this out. And like I said, it's a cracking little game just now, no pun intended, just realised that. If you like your pirate games and you were a fan of Sid Meier's Pirates, or you like the Anno games, definitely consider backing it. There's a game here to be played. It's good fun, and even my 5-year-old daughter enjoyed it. So if she's getting a little kick out of it, I'm sure you will too. Combat's simple, but it's easy, and it's quite intuitive. I would just like to see that expanded upon, and all the other points that I mentioned earlier. So to sum up, great little game, very good start. Let's just hope they keep developing it in the future.